Hey everybody, if you're back with us, welcome back. Got another great episode. First time, really going to enjoy this. I have been talking to a lot of founders lately. Came across somebody who I think you're going to love, George Hughes, who is running the Breakaway Talent Group. We're going to get into why that name is there in a bit. But former hockey player, now entrepreneur, all around great guy. Is going to share some great lessons with us. I think on and off the ice, business and maybe personal. So George, man, how are you?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I've listened to a few of your other episodes and big fan of the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate. I almost wanted to say Jack Hughes there, man. I'm like, I literally was like, no, no, not that's not him. I don't know how often you kind of get that, but I literally wanted to go that route for some reason off the
You
bat.
know, what's funny though. So my uncle's name is Jack Hughes, and he played in the NHL. So he was actually the last guy cut from the 1980 Olympic team, which is a crazy story. And
No,
then 40 years later, the other new Jack Hughes scores the
dude,
game-winning
that's
goal in the
wild.
Olympics to win gold. Yeah, what are the
I
chances, right?
I think I saw that like on a clip. They
Yeah,
had it like on the broadcast. They were talking that. That
yeah.
was
It went.
your
Yeah,
uncle.
yeah, it went pretty viral after on Instagram and Twitter. Just the story revolved, which was it was really cool for him and my family just to get that recognition and for his story to be part of it for USA Hockey because it really is it was part of the journey of USA Hockey going back to 1960 to 1980 to a
Man,
recent gold Olympic win and all the players that suited up and kind of pushed for that recent gold.
that's wild, man. I remember you know, and and for those listening, not quite sure, Jack Hughes was the guy who scored the, missing tooth, scores the winner in the Olympics, right? Goes nuts. They fly home and do the tour around the US, right? And
Yeah,
I still want to be Jack Hughes. I'm pretty sure that I want to be Jack Hughes right now, but that's a great story, man. But it's a good segue for us. So
yeah,
you played, and when I say play, you talked. I think when I came across you first, you were really hitting on something I loved, was like going to the next level, and you took it from I think like age like 13 through,
yeah.
and then you said, "Hey, I went to the next level." And then like anybody, and I would love to dive into this more, anybody in sports, I don't care how where you are, father time and ability and everything kind of comes together, and at some point in time you stop playing, right? And for you, I think that was what, like 2013, 2014, a couple years in the, I think with what Stars in Edmonton, I think in their programs. Um,
Yeah, yep.
so when you hit that point, what was that? Was that an ongoing discussion in your brain and with your family, or was that like a moment of time when you just knew?
Yeah, I think I just knew, like, as you referenced, hockey was my whole life from age 3. Before I could even walk, I was on the ice. My dad was a great hockey player. My mom played hockey. My sister played hockey. My brother played high level hockey. So it was always hockey from a young age. And that becomes your life and identity. And your goal is to play at the college level, play at the NHL level. Faced a lot of adversity early on with injuries, broken foot, hand, wrist, a lot of concussions, but fought through that, and I was able to play Division One at St. Lawrence University, and as you mentioned, played professionally in the AHL and ECHL. And the big wake up call for me was going from college to the pros because I had a great college career. Right, I scored over 100 points as a defenseman. I was All American my senior year. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm gonna go to the NHL, and then I get to that next level, and I realize, wow, I'm not ready for this level. Probably wasn't mentally and physically ready for that jump, and then had a few more concussions, and then I fell out of love with the game a little bit. You're riding around the coast, ECHL, you're making $300 a year. The combination of that, thinking, hey, what's the next head injury gonna look like for me for the rest of my life? So that's when it ended, and that's when the even bigger wake up call happened.
Well, you said it, right? So let's talk. And you said a key word that I think I've heard a lot of people talk about. And I think like I was in the military and I went through this, right? I think it's, and I would love to hear your perspective on it. You wear a uniform, and that's kind of your identity, right? And for me, I think I had known almost exactly what you said. I had fallen out of love with the Army. It just wasn't fun anymore. I would wake up and dread going to work. I would go work out and just wouldn't have fun. And you said it, it became your identity, which it had to be, I guess, right? To be really good, I think you really had to like go all in on that. But when you don't put the skates on and you're like, okay, it's it, like no more training camp, no more team, no more, getting ready for that next season. What was that process like as you go through that? Hey, this is who I am. I'm George Hughes, just a regular guy.
Yeah, I think it's a two-part crisis, as I'd like to put it. The first part is that identity loss and also just the routine. And I'm sure it was similar for you. Like you're told where to be, where to go
Yeah.
every day. Everything's almost done for you, right? And so there's that part. You're so used to being around your teammates. You have coaches to support you, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm alone. There's no one with me. It's just me. So you lose that accountability a little bit. So that's the first part of the crisis. The second part is, oh shit, I got to go get a job and do something else. So what the hell am I going to do with my life? So I was like, oh, I got to make a resume and I got to get ready for this interview, or what should I even do with my career? So that was that was also pretty tough.
Did you lean on family or friends, or is that an internal conversation? Like your dad, obviously, or your siblings that going through the hockey, and at some point of time, they have the similar kind of transition, maybe harder for others, or was it
Yeah.
just tough love? Yeah, George, go find a damn job, man.
My dad's pretty old school and tough, so I remember just being all depressed and feeling sorry for myself at home. And he just goes, "When the hell are you going to go get a job?" And I'm like, "All right, like I need to go get a job. Like this is too much." So, but yeah, I did have a good support group, family and friends, but I was a little I was stubborn back then, I would say, and just thought, and a lot of athletes I think do this, say, I'm a hockey guy. I still need to be involved in the game in some capacity, right? Because that's what I know. And I didn't even think about the business world outside of sports or hockey. So I went into sports media, worked in at NBC Sports, did that for 6 years in production. And again, another lesson, a wake up call for me. You think you're going to love it, and all of a sudden, you know, you're one of 10,000 people at a company. You're cutting film, and you're making $13 an hour, working 60 hours a week, and 6 years go by, and I blink. I'm like, what just happened? Like this wasn't it either.
Yeah, man, it's so relevant because literally in the military, people come out and either they go, which I did, the project management, you're like, yeah, sure, man, I'll go manage a project, which is nothing like what you do
Yeah,
in the military, right? Or you go like defense contracting, and it's like literally you just take off one uniform, put on another, and go learn it. And that's what everybody does, and it's familiar, right? And it's literally your comfort zone, which is fine for some. For me, I never. I don't know. I think for a while I was in that comfort zone, and then I just kind of one day just woke up and I said, if I ever do another damn government contract, I'm going to lose my mind, right? So I literally just pivoted as hard as I could and told my wife I just quit. She's like, "You did what?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just quit." We have like a literally what, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
right.
And she's like, "Cool. I'm going to go over here. You go figure out that job thing, would you, so we can, keep the house." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, hon." I'm like, I'll figure this out. Still with me, but by the way, but still probably, looks back on that and goes, "Yeah, I'm not quite sure you were sane, but it was just one of those things I had to do."
Yeah.
No, I'm right there with you, man. So before we come off the hockey and head into your transition in business, I have to ask is a thing. You found your rookie jersey online on eBay, right? So, like, now you didn't play for the Panthers as in the NHL team. So,
No.
what jersey is this? Like, is this a training camp jersey?
Yeah, so it was a rookie camp jersey. So I think it was after my senior year of college, that following fall, the Florida Panthers invited me to their rookie camp, which was again an eye-opening experience just in terms of the level of skill and strength that was needed to play at that level. So I was talking about, I remember Seth Jones, who's a great defenseman, coming down on me,
Yep.
6'4", great skater, making plays. I go, oh, I'm in trouble here. So, but yeah, I ended up getting hurt during that camp, which was also difficult. But yeah, funny enough, someone messaged me on LinkedIn and goes, "Hey, dude, someone is selling your jersey on on eBay. I go, no way. So I look at it and I'm just like, all right, like I'm gonna need to get this jersey as like a, just like as a part of like remembering that experience for me. But it was listed at like $450, and I'm like, there's no way I can do $450. Like this has got to be worth like ten bucks. So I kept like lowballing and lowballing, and the guy just wouldn't budge. So I'm just like, you know what? Buy now 450. So I spent 450 to get that jersey, but it was
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah, I'm glad I can have it. I can frame it and just, think back to those
Dude,
times.
that better be framed on your wall somewhere.
Yeah,
Dude, that's
yeah,
look, I had a brother who played ball at a level, right? I peaked out at age 12, right? That was my athletic ability. I was done. I tell him, I said, dude, I would give my right thumb to hit a home run in front of 7,000 people,
right.
at home with the music going. And dude, I mean, those experiences I can't, I'll never have, right? So that's cool that you got it. So let's kind of go into this. So now we come out of, and you took me there. So we do hockey. We figure out our identity. Your dad, which I think he was literally, did he coach Mallory?
Hillary Knight.
Thank you. So he coached like part of like the women's gold medal team. Like he was their coach growing up, right? He's that guy.
Yeah, so it was actually one specific player, Hillary Knight, who we grew up with in Chicago. And my dad was Hillary's first youth coach. And it was a really cool story that NBC did on my dad and Hillary's relationship. And they asked her, Hillary, who's been the biggest impact on your
Yep.
career? And she said, my dad. So they did a big story on it. And it was just, really impactful for my dad for her to say that. And they have a really special relationship, and it's just incredible. What she's accomplished in her 20 plus career. She's going to go into the Hall of Fame as one of the best female hockey players ever. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, really happy for my dad. And he just gives the advice to me. He was just like, I didn't do anything special. I just tried to involve her, be a good person, and put her in the right environment, and she took it and ran.
Nice. Your dad's come up a few times now, right? In terms of your transition, what he did for like youth hockey in the area, starting a group and having that impact on people's lives, which is not an understatement. What advice do you think he gave you that you really carry on today?
Yeah. Um, I think it's advice, but it's just the role model that he is for me. And I think we do have similar stories in the sense of he was a great hockey player as well, right? And he was on track to, maybe be in the NHL one day, and he played professionally, and he didn't reach that goal, but he transitioned really successfully into finance and had a great career in finance. So he kind of showed me that, even if hockey ends, like, hey, there's something else out there that you got to go get after and be great at again. So just that attitude of, never giving up, figuring out what's going to be next. And honestly, just being a good person, the way you treat people, though, is really the biggest thing that I've taken away from him. And then I've just seen that from my family and him, and just the way they treat their friends and the way they treat their family.
It's awesome, man. I mean, just hearing you talk about your dad a few different times, and I saw that story. Um, just had to ask you that question because I mean, it just sounds like that impact is great. And, I think as we get older, we don't realize the impact, right? We're all
Yeah,
headstrong as we're young. And then we start getting into our family years and we're like, dad had some good advice back then. Maybe dad wasn't, maybe he was right. Sorry. So now we've come from hockey. You've had a tremendous career. You made that transition and 6 years goes by and you're like, yeah, cutting clips and editing is not my calling.
right.
How'd you make that transition? You went, before you started your business, you're still 4 or 5 years away here from starting your business. And you got into helping, athletes and veterans, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
make that transition to, business and really flourish. Man, I saw all your posts over the time of the call ups and promotions and all that people you worked with. How did that came to be?
Yeah. So COVID hit and I got let go from NBC. So I tell people a lot the best thing that ever happened to me was getting laid off from NBC because there was no more hockey being, played at the time. So
Yep.
that was a big moment for me. And then I actually started a podcast, Dave, and I started interviewing former hockey players with a focus on life after hockey. How'd you be successful? How'd you deal with the transition and be successful outside of hockey? So I ended up interviewing JR, the founder of Shift Group, and was fortunate enough for him to hire me. And that was a life changing experience for me, for him to hire me and give me that chance and to work with Shift Group. And I absolutely just fell in love with recruiting, with helping athletes and military veterans kind of go through that transition and get into a sales role because I lived it. I knew at least on the athlete side, I knew what they were going through, and I tried to be the person that I needed when I was going through the transition. So, and it was just a lot of fun too.
Do you find now, look, and you said it's fun, which I'm going to come to in a second. That just kind of hit me. But the question I had in my head was, it's I did this, right? I did
Yeah,
our stories are eerily similar. The more I think, right? You go from the sports into that or hockey into that recruiting with a short stint in the NBC 6 years. I went into kind of veteran recruiting, very similar, if not the same. And what I found was, everybody talks about, oh, the athletes and the discipline and the veterans, the same thing, but it's true. I guess what I found was it was the work ethic and the attention to detail and just the ability to have rough days and know you're going to have rough days and get through it. Whereas what I would talk to clients on and companies looking to hire folks, did you deviate off of that, or was that the same message that you talk to folks on as well in terms of, hey, here's what an athlete, a former athlete brings to the table? Because when JR, hired you, you don't have anything in recruiting. You don't have anything in sales. You're, 6 years out of hockey with some editing experience, right? So he takes a chance on you for a reason, which is the same
yeah,
thing. And any hire, I don't care what level, is a risk to a point. You can minimize it, but there's still risk involved. But when you talk to clients back then and clients now, how do you define like why an athlete is good in business?
yeah. There's a lot of different reasons. The first thing I go to really is character. That's the first thing for me. Like I want a good person with strong character because that's more important than talent or skill for me. And then yeah, a lot of different reasons. Being in that team environment, I know sales is an individual sport, but it's also a team sport first. So I like that team kind of mindset and team culture. But yeah, the competitiveness I think is huge. Like athletes really want to run up the scoreboard. They want to win. They want to be successful. And that's what I realized too when I went into I went from making $13 an hour to a fully commissioned sales role or recruiting role. And it was just like the fire lit back in me from my playing days. So that's kind of what I felt from it. But yeah, resiliency, as you mentioned, you know better than me how hard it is and how much rejection, how many no's you're going to get, how many times you're going to get hung up on. And yeah, the coachability, how much we want to get better, how much do we want to train and actually improve day to day is something that athletes really, really take to heart. And yeah, having that kind of that growth mindset.
Cool. Cool. So now you take it for, 3, 4 years there. So now there's that almost like the decision to, kind of hang up the skates and go another path. Now we got to make the decision to start our own company, right? So talk me through that, man, because I mean, now you're into family, you're into kids, you're into a whole lot of different scenarios than being just you with your dad's, in the bedroom, right? So
Yeah.
how does that all come to be?
Yeah, I had such a great experience with Shift Group, like I said, and I think after 4 or 5 years, I think we both just realized I kind of hit my ceiling there. So it's just time to part ways. And then I thought about, hey, what do I want to do next? And I was like, I want to keep doing this. Like I love doing this, and I want to keep doing it. And like I can go work for someone else and work for them again. But I was like, I want to do this on my own, and I want to do it my way. So I felt like it was kind of that now or never time to
Mhm.
go for it. And this was the time. If I didn't do it now, it was never going to happen. I started my a previous company, Next Shift Hockey with Media, which was the podcast. So
Mhm.
I had kind of given it a shot before. So I felt like, hey, this is my second attempt at starting a business, but now we got to actually make it a real business.
Nice. Nice. So your business, and I'm heading back to my notes here on my horrible memory. Breakaway talent group. So same thing. Pure, take your former athletes into business, work that whole motion. Anything else that you took, and wanted to take off of that, or is that, hey, look, there's such a market and there's such a demand for good talent, and I know it. Was that your core concept?
Yeah, I think naturally we work with a lot of athletes just because we're both former athletes and coaches, but there's no requirement to be an athlete. I think, Dave, you've probably seen this in your sales career. Like, yes, being an athlete gives you a good chance to be a great salesperson, but there's other people out there that aren't athletes that might be excellent in music or something else that have those same kind of traits. So and if you want to get into sales too, like if you want to get into sales and we think you're going to be a great salesperson, we want to work with you. So but yeah, it's focused on athletes, high performers that want to get into entry level SDR roles and account executive roles, and we want to work with growing companies that want to hire those people. Trying to figure out the industry still. Like we've done a lot in technology, but not married to that either. We've worked in real estate, we worked in energy, so trying to figure that out as we go as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's a great, I mean, I think your background was so interesting to me that I've held off on kind of like you're only what, 90 days in terms of this company, correct? Like I mean,
Yeah,
we're like under a quarter here, correct? In terms of you starting this thing?
yeah. We're it's very early on. Learning a lot, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, so we're loving it.
What have you learned, biggest lesson? So if you had to say, hey, here's one lesson
Yeah.
that I didn't think, 90 days ago I would, learn this, right? Or how important that would be. What would that, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, but I think it's really the business development side of it has been the biggest learning experience for me and how important that is. I came from the candidate side, working the candidate through the process, which I think is my favorite part and what I'm great at. But there's a whole nother side of the business is you got to go get new
Yeah.
clients, right? So that's really the biggest I think challenge and learning experience for me early on. It's like you got to go reach out to people and create new business. So that's been big. I think too, especially in recruiting, is you don't want to just have one opportunity going. You got to have three, four opportunities going at once because that one might fall through, and then hey, we're back to zero, right? So
Oh, dude,
you gotta have three to four going, or you're going to be in trouble when
you're
that
bringing up
one.
scar tissue right now of my recruiting days, right? And I think once you're and maybe it's this way in different industries, but I know it's that way for recruiting. It does not surprise me you went from recruiting and said, "Hey, I'm going into my own thing." Zero surprise because in my mind, once you have that bug, you have it, right?
Yeah,
I still have it. I went from recruiting of 10 plus years into SaaS, and I still get that little itch, right? Of, hunting. And you say you got to have three or four things going like in any pipeline, but I always to kid my SaaS, guys. I'm like, look, man, you don't get it. I'm like, in recruiting, yes, there's a client who says, hey, I'm going to pay George if you find somebody. But then you got a human being who can make crazy ass decisions, right? And not take the offer. And I still remember this person. And if they're out there somewhere, I mean, God bless them. But I worked with a Fortune like 100 company in Houston for I bet 8 months. I got in and they gave me this tough role, right? Like, all right, Dave, go prove yourself. I'm like, all right, you're so and so. I have to, I'm not gonna, I can't negotiate that one. This guy is the guy, right? And I think 10 years ago it was like a 125 starting, right? So maybe in today's dollars, say, 150. And I'm staring at this and I'm like, we're on final interview. Like, we're done. This thing's over. I even did the commission thing. I was like, that's dumb. I jinxed the shit out of that, right? And I'll never forget. He calls me up, wasn't married, so I didn't have any like family yay nay because we all know how big family is in terms of those decisions. I'm like, cool, we're done. There's no one else, man. We're locked in. he's like, Dave, I've been dating this girl for 2 months, and all of a sudden my heart just stops. I was like, well, damn, here we go. And Dave, I'm gonna move to Dallas instead of Houston. I can't take this job. Okay.
Heartbreaker.
So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, man. Like, okay. Needless to say,
Oh,
never heard from my Fortune 100 company again after they were all like, month-long interview, fly them, do all this stuff. And the hiring manager was like, well, why did you turn it down, Dave? I'm like, yeah, I'm not, I held it off. I'm like, well, he had a girlfriend of 2 months and he chose her over you, so I didn't say that. I think I just said, oh, things happen. But yeah, man, recruiting's tough. You got humans making crazy decisions.
yeah.
It's tough.
I've been there. Yeah, they can say no at the end, which is really tough. But that's another great lesson I've learned in recruiting is really digging into those, like trying to find out early on, like you're really gonna make this move, or. And I think we can get so excited by how good of a candidate is, and hey, we got to get this candidate in process. But slowing down early on and really, really qualifying him, and the little things about hey, is this person really going to drive an hour to this job 5 days a week, just or finding out about his family life, things like that can come up. So I've done that, and yeah, it hurts to get burned at the end, but it
It
makes the
hurts,
win
man.
makes the wins even sweeter.
It does. Like I would go, hey man, you got to work second shift like Wednesday through Sunday. Yeah, Dave, no problem. I'm like, all right, dude, time out. Like, no,
Yeah,
you're not. Like, come on. Like you
yeah,
just told me like you have two kids at home and all like, and they're like, oh, I will. I'm like, yeah, no. Like I'm sorry. Like, no. It's just it's made there's certain rules for certain people and trying to force it just never works. It
yeah,
just never works. And in recruiting you much rather take your wins where they really fit rather than
yeah,
force it, right? Because you'll just lose. The candidate will be mad, they'll blame you. The client will be mad, they'll blame you, right? And then you're sitting there trying to piece everything together right on the back end. So I get that. All right, so when you started your company, did anybody think you were just crazy? Did anybody say, "Hey, man, you're doing your 4 year, 5 year thing. You're locked in with a great guy there, right?" Did anybody kind of go, "Hey, think on this for a second, before you just jump"?
no one actually said that to me. I think the support I mean like someone probably should have, but the support was actually great from my family and my wife. And I think people realized that I was very good at it and could keep doing it. So I think it just made a lot of sense with what I had learned and just to keep it going. So, but that's the hard part is to anyone can start a business, right? You gotta the hard part is keeping it going.
Did you always think you'd own a business? I mean, was that something that you envisioned at some point of time? Maybe it was a couple years ago, maybe it was a while back, but did owning a business come on your radar at some point of time?
Yeah, I think when I wanted to, I started that media company, Next Shift Hockey, and that was my really first chance and go at it. So that's when I really wanted to start my own thing, and I learned a ton from it, and then I was able to parlay that experience into Shift Group, and then this experience. So yeah, I think like I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of people that own their own business. They kind of have that itch to like, I want this to be my own. Like I want to live life on my own terms. And like my thought was, I have to at least go for it and try. So, and if I fail, I fail, and I can go back to something else.
I have heard that and you mentioned you were listening to like a previous episode. We had, I call him Vega, but Alejandro Vega is another. It's a small business owner. He's a great dude. He does, home run coatings. Shout out to him in upstate. He said the same exact thing to me. He goes, "What if it doesn't work? So what? I'll just go back to what I was doing, have a good life, and I'll be fine." He goes, "But I got to take a shot and try and create something for myself." Almost verbatim of what you said, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah,
That's the mindset of guys like legit. I've always said this. I will never start my own company. I'm a great employee five, right? I mean, I'll crush employee five, but employee one, No, no, because on day one, I'm not excited. I have that fear of the small business loan or whatever I have to do to, get things going, right? Where you guys go, your mindset is, nope, if I don't, if I fail, so what? I go back to what I was doing and I take my shot, and I think that is a legit mindset that, is great. And I think if more people had it, they'd probably you'd probably have more people starting their new businesses. Is probably what I suspect. Just say yes.
Yeah,
What if it doesn't work, man? Go back to what you were doing. So what? Go for it.
yeah. Or it turns into something else. Like I said, when I started Next Shift Hockey, the media company, I got to meet hundreds and hundreds of new people by starting that company. And
Yeah,
yes, the business technically failed, but
yeah,
I was able to get a new job and a new career and a life-changing opportunity out of it. So the
100%.
business failed, but in my mind, I still won big time.
It's amazing. I posted about this, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and I said if I was new into any industry, I would start a podcast, right? Because immediately you start soaking up industry knowledge and you start learning the people in the game. And if you come prepared, people acknowledge that, and now you start building your network, right? And I think I'm on like 55, maybe 60 episodes. And I keep in contact, like the network I've built from those 60 people and those introductions I've made. And not only that, but the stuff I learn is immense, right? And it kind of goes to what you were saying with, yeah, I quote unquote it failed. It got you your job of 4 to 5 years, learn the recruiting industry. Now it starts this. I mean, that domino put everything in motion. So, look at it as you want, but that was it. I think running a podcast literally is the simplest thing now to do. It is not hard, for God's sake. If I can do it, being the tech guy that I am, anybody can do it. I think it's just great for networking, industry knowledge, and quite honestly, it's a little fun as well. So
Yeah, if
it's,
anyone's thinking about doing it, I would absolutely recommend
yep,
doing the podcast because, like you said, it forces you to reach out to people and create relationships with people you didn't know before, and just
yep.
creates that network and snowball effect. So
There's this guy, and I like talking to founders, I like talking to people in sales and marketing and some cool stories. And there's a ton. It's amazing the stories that are out there when you kind of dig. I reached out to this guy, and he said we can line it up for maybe July or August. He is crushing right now Instagram, right? And crushing these videos, and he sells suits, and he does so it's B2C, right? And Instagram's maybe more B2C than LinkedIn, but he's on there as well. And I'm like, dude, I gotta talk to this guy, right? Because his use of social media, I was like, dude, I was like, that's it, right? I was like, he's got like the key. He could take that. I am convinced he could take that into any industry, run the same kind of play in terms of social media and crush. I'm convinced of it, right? And I
yeah,
think it's the same. It's just, podcasts, Instagram Reels, call it what you want. There's so many mechanisms right now to kind of really become an industry expert and expand your network that it's amazing to me. So,
that's why, just going back to Alejandro Vega's story, that's why I loved his story. Where he's like, I learned so much in software sales, and he's like, I'm going to take what I learned in software sales, and I'm going to go start my own, acquire a business and run similar playbooks. So that was super
literally,
inspirational to me. And I talked to a good amount of people in tech that have similar backgrounds and thoughts. Be like, I have 10, 15 years doing this. Why not, bring it to another space? So I thought that was awesome.
oh, you should connect. I should connect you guys up. You guys, I mean, you guys have similar stories. You're both new founders. I think you could really learn just from talking to you both. I go, man, you guys think alike. All right, so look, we're roughly on 30 minutes, and I always promise to keep this here because I know you got little one. You have one, two, like how many you got like running around there, a future defenseman over there? Like,
So I recently was married actually, and we're hopefully gonna start the family soon. So
all
we're
right,
working on it. Yeah,
all
yeah,
right, all right.
yeah.
Look. Hey, look, man, we know we need defensemen. We're not gonna have any of those like centers, those guys like rough and tumble, playoff beard, right? Which you're already going on. If I ever had to do that, I would look so bad. God, it'd be horrible. Thank God I never did this. So look, I gotta ask, man. Like, were you a physical guy? Were you a guy with the glove in the face kind of guy? Were you like you that guy, or like I'll let some other guys handle that business, man? Because on defense, you're that guy sometimes, right? So did you partake in that penalty box activity, or like where were you on that level?
Oh, I was a skill guy. I was the smooth skating.
You were a skill guy.
Yeah, I was a skill guy. I was the puck mover. I was an offensive defenseman. So I saw my job and role is to break the puck out, get it to the forwards, and kind of be that fourth forward and bring the offense. So, I definitely needed a little more grit in my game. That was
So
probably
basically,
a knock on me.
you were hanging on to the jersey, going, "Hey, man, we're just gonna hang on. We're not gonna do. You don't do anything. I don't do anything. Let these other guys
Yeah,
go fight." Right? Is that the deal?
yeah, yeah. I had some really good D partners that would protect me and take care of me. So those are my guys. But
Oh
my
man,
my
I
bro-
always
my
thought.
brother and dad were the guys that would drop the gloves. So I was more the skill guy.
I somehow think Thanksgiving dinner at your house is like entertaining, right? You're like, hey, George, you have any penalty minutes this season? No, all right, that's cool. Whatever, man. You know.
Yeah, super super competitive too. It doesn't matter what we're playing. We play a lot of Scrabble, and you should see the Scrabble games get out of control. So you might see
The
some fights
Hughes
during.
family Scrabble games. Put that
Yeah.
on YouTube, man. I'd watch that. I'd be all in on that.
More
So,
more chirping than you'd ever
oh
believe.
God, yes. That'd be, look, honey, you're marrying into this family. Like sorry, but here we go with Scrabble, right? I just gotta warn you, it could get a little violent,
Yeah.
so there you go. Well, look, George, I appreciate you, man. Like I always love talking to people that have, 60 days in. But your story of making the transition, right, from pro athlete into business, finding yourself, and really, look, man, that domino that kicked everything, the pod was the podcast. That kicked everything,
Yeah.
right? That was it,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's for every, Connor McDavid that gets, 100, $200 million in the NHL, there's, 1,000 more hockey guys like me that play in the coast and play professionally that need to get a job after. So,
Yeah,
those are the people that, I want to work with and I want to help because I lived it. And as you know, Dave, sales can be that kind of great next pathway for them.
awesome. Yeah, I love it, man. Look, I mean, there was 8 things I probably missed on in terms of our conversation, but I think your path is great. I'm excited to, kind of keep watching you guys, right? I think you know what you're doing, and recruiting's tough, but you know what you're doing, and no doubt you'll be successful. And you put the reps in, and you know, and go from there, man. So George, thank you. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your time here. And end of I guess what end of Q2, starting to Q3 for you, under 60 days. But thanks again. And for everybody else, hey, coming back. We got one more next week. I may have a tan from Punta Cana. Maybe I do the interview from down there. I don't know, right? Maybe my wife will kill me. But either way, be good, guys. George, thank you again, sir. I'll see you all next week. Take care, guys.
Thanks for having me.